love this slide, partly because I think it illustrates a lot of really important things about innovation, including the fact that innovation is all about manifesting value in a relationship, typically a relationship between the supplier of something and the receiver. We've all heard the expression, I assume, two's company and three's a crowd. Right? And of course, although this looks like a relationship between two people, there might be many different crowds involved, because both of these little darlings might be members of multiple crowds. But fundamentally, of course, we think about it, we all have millions, possibly more, relationships in our lives. Not because we are related intimately with a million people, but because we have relationships to things we consume, like water, which we need to live, or the pinch of sugar, or the squeeze of lemon that gives it additional flavor. We have relationships with various producers and suppliers of things we need to live. We have, most importantly, as Naveen said earlier, we have the relationship to ourself, right? And as he said, and I think it's even in the Bible and other works of wisdom, if we don't learn to love ourselves, we're incapable of loving others. Well, what we see here is hopefully a relationship where there is love involved and not just money. Right? We often, in business, we tend to focus on the balance sheets and P&L statements and so on as a measure of success. But why are we trying to make money? What are we really trying to do in any enterprise? Right? Surely we're trying to create products and services, brands that people love. We're trying to create an enterprise that people love working in, because of course, if our employees aren't baking love into the bread and soup and so on and serving it lovingly on a plate, then no one's going to experience it. And even if the chef's done a great job, if somebody just plunks it down carelessly, the love, as we've all experienced, evaporates in a second. So the other point to make here is that we want to create more value, and that's what innovation is all about. And we talk about engaging crowds, engaging communities to accelerate innovation. That's my greatest interest personally in crowdsourcing, is all about how we intelligently engage relationships with crowds to fuel our innovation initiatives. And there are many ways we do that. I mean, some of the more obvious ways that we've talked about for many years, one is we engage our customers, or we engage our non-customers, right? We try to engage market segments for products that we might even be just thinking about developing. We engage potential consumers to try and get insights into how we can build proactively before it even exists, build better solutions. Another way we engage crowds is often looking at competitors, right? And there's all kinds of sneaky ways to do it, like pretending you've got job vacancies and interviewing people for jobs and engaging their ideas and figuring out what our competitors are doing. But there are less obvious ways to engage crowds. And the least obvious is arguably when we actually get out of the box. We get out of our own heads. We get out of the four walls that we call our workplace. We get out of our organization, and very often even out of our mental paradigm that defines, it's our definition of what we do to deliver value. So the best ideas for innovation, in fact, come when we really look well beyond the edges of our particular box, and we build a really wide funnel, because the only bad idea is the one that got away. So we want to reach out and understand other industries, so examples like airline industries, innovating and producing much faster turnaround times based on looking at race pit crews, or designing bullet trains based on looking at hummingbirds. Okay? Two real-world examples of, in a sense, horizontal or open innovation, looking outside your paradigm at nature or another industry. But as leaders, it's not just about building a wide funnel, it's also about empowering that tornado. It's all about creating powerful swirl so that ideas collide, kill each other, are reborn, sometimes recombine into exciting new ideas and insights. But the other important act of leadership is, of course, focus. It's learning to kill good ideas quickly so you focus on great ideas. So that you take those ideas, which individually are almost worthless little specks of gold dust, and you turn them into the gold bricks that are going to be your foundations for a highly successful, highly valuable enterprise. So I'm going to help you catch up on your agenda by being brief and allowing more time for questions. But basically, just want to invite you to check out Hyperloop Innovation. That's all about accelerating innovation using insights from unusual and wacky, wonderful crowds. And our contact details, Dave and Epi, and Chris, who unfortunately couldn't be here because of a family emergency. And by the way, we want you to become part of this. And we're especially looking for more ladies, and we're especially looking for people with less gray hair. And we're especially just looking for interesting people who can bring value and additional perspectives and diversity to what we're doing. So we'd really love to hear from you if it's of interest. Time for questions?
Anyone? Dave? Yeah, please.
So,
If we have a mic.
you mentioned that your interest in crowdsourcing primarily focuses around its potential to accelerate innovation. However, sometimes, as a lot of the folks in the room of practice or are practicing know, sometimes it can slow you down, right? The process of actually adding an ideation process at the front end before you make a decision can add time to the planning process, right? So I'm interested in kind of more of your feedback on how you advise folks that are thinking about adding kind of open to their traditional business process that could be perceived as perhaps over time it does accelerate, but initially it adds time, weight, and cost, kind of how you describe that to people.
I think you're right, that sometimes, in fact, I tell my clients they need to stop and take 3 major steps back and completely rethink what they're doing. And that engaging the crowd can help them with insights in that rethinking process. Because all too often, and we heard other speakers talk about things like incrementalism, right? And thinking that, oh yeah, let's get another 2 or 3%, let's get another 5%. Wow, we got 10% this time. Big deal, right? If you're not getting 10x, 50x, whatever, if you're not really radically changing what you're doing, and sometimes, like the example with Kodak, if you're not disrupting your own business, then you are going to die. It's just a question of when. You know, as we saw with Kodak, it took them a hell of a long time to die because they had a huge stack of cash, right? But what a waste. What an incredible waste of human potential that they took so long to roll over and die, right? So fundamentally, yeah, you're right. You've got to take a strategic perspective on things and look at where you're trying to get to and recognize that it's a journey. And in fact, where you think you're headed to isn't in fact where you're going, right? By the time you get to the top of the mountain you think you're climbing, you're going to see that there's actually another mountain range, right? You're going to see there's a higher peak.
Did that answer your question, or? Yeah. Okay.
Dave, you have spoken about measuring value that could be created as a result of intelligent and successful innovation. How do you see the crowd helping to identify or quantify the value that might be created with an idea?
That's a really interesting question, Jay. Fundamentally, value is, of course, a psychological phenomenon. And the psychology of human beings is very complex, right? We're all different. So if I ask you how you value a particular thing, say your Tesla, right? Versus how some other Tesla driver might value it, you'll have different views, right? One of you might say, oh yeah, it's that wonking acceleration, right? Or one might say, oh, it's the nice smooth drive, or one might say it's the environmental impact. So value, again, is a psychological concept, which is why we always revert to money, but we forget when we do that actually money isn't a real thing, right? Money is a societal construct.
Money is made up.
Money's made up. Money is an
completely
artificial thing, right?
People put so much value to the money that they completely put so much trust, and I think that's what's going to get us in trouble.
Absolutely. So when someone pulls $1,000 out of their pocket, you know, the point is $1,000 for you, $1,000 might have a particular value, right? For me, it might have a different value. For some people, it'll be security. For some people, it'll be a nice holiday. For some people, it'll be whatever, a fantastic party, right? But money is just something, again, you know, you could do a survey of people in this room and say, what is $1 worth, or what is £1 worth, or what is a whatever worth?
What's the value of a US dollar, for example?
Yeah, yeah. So it's an extremely complex thing. And I would submit to you that engaging the crowd is the only way you'd ever really begin to answer that question.
Well, this is one thing I just want to come in here, because
please.
when Naveen was talking about like a cryptocurrency is a completely scam, I don't agree with that statement, because I think it's like there is some real potential for us to bring us to the next stage of what the future of money will look like. Okay, and if you look at, for example, today, the money that we have in our hands, we've been using pre-Jesus time.
Yeah. Coins.
So how can we be so stupid that put so much faith in something that has been so made up, so manipulated, and we're still feel that this is the real value, that we should pay attention?
I've got one of these things in my pocket, a coin. Is that any more real than that? Or any more real than...
Or like what Jeffrey was talking about.
Yeah.
You know, his $50 million, whatever chip that he had in his head yesterday.
53 million.
53 million. We have to come back to it because we are running out of time.
Yeah. Sorry.